Hola, buenos noches. Estoy en Cancún, Mexico. Hello, good evening. I am in Cancun, Mexico. Just did a little translation of what I was saying in Spanish. But welcome back to the Cosmic Mission, everyone. My name is Al, and I am going to share my life with you guys. It's been a lot going on since my last episode that I did with you guys. I really wasn't that chatty, or my inner being really wasn't that chatty, but it is now. So, yeah, tonight I just finished dinner and I felt a little tired while I was sitting downstairs, but I finally got myself together and decided to do an episode tonight, which is going to be episode 7 of the Cosmic Mission, and it's going to be titled My Night of the Iguana. And I'm just going to say the reason why I wanted to title this My Night of the Iguana is for so many reasons. Not only the 1964 film, The Night of the Iguana, I wanted to talk about the themes in that movie, but then also wanted to talk about my mini holiday that I had out there in Puerto Vallarta, which was a few days ago. I spent about, I think it was about 6 days, 5 nights there. No, 6 nights, 5 days there. Whatever, however it went, we spent about a good amount of time out there in Puerto Vallarta and had a lot of good time with friends, serendipitous moments, synchronicity moments that I plan to talk about with you guys and how I really landed on this episode. So, without further ado, I'm going to kick off episode 7. Like I said, it is My Night of the Iguana. And since I'm always sharing my life with all of you who are listening to my podcast, some of you already know this, but a lot of you guys don't know this. But I love classic movies. And I'm just not talking about movies from the early 2000s or 1990s. I'm talking about films from the silent era, the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and let's go into the 80s. So I don't know where it came from, but I've always been drawn to old classic movies. And one of my favorite classic movies is The Night of the Iguana. And if you guys ever watched the film, it's filmed in black and white. A lot of us who are classic film fans, we wish it was in full color because we could be able to see the flora or the canopy of Puerto Vallarta before all the buildings and city infrastructure has been built to what it is today. But when the film was first made back in 1964, there really wasn't much to Puerto Vallarta. And The Night of the Iguana stars Ava Gardner. And I know there's a lot of you out there who think it was Elizabeth Taylor, but Elizabeth Taylor was never in the film. She was just married to Richard Burton, which she didn't trust, from what they say, Hollywood gossip. Elizabeth didn't trust her husband around Ava. So she decided to come down to Puerto Vallarta doing filming and create a stir down there. So that's where the confusion came from. But if you guys fact check it, it's Ava Gardner. And if you guys don't know who she is, she was a beautiful, not only a Hollywood actress, but a beautiful person physically. And I think a good movie to start with Ava Gardner would be one of my favorite movies by her is actually The Barefoot Contessa from, I believe it was 1954. It was starring her and Humphrey Bogart. And that's so many different themes in that one. But back to The Night of the Iguana. Filmed in 1964, Ava Gardner, Richard Burton were the two films' big stars at the time. And it was actually a film and play written by American playwright Tennessee Williams. And if you guys don't know who he was actually, he wrote a lot of plays during the mid-century period. And this is one of his masterpieces that he actually wrote. So hopefully I get to dissect this movie a little well for you guys to understand there's so many different moving parts within the film. Well, Richard Burton plays a reverend and in a small little town. And Reverend Shannon, that's his character. He's one foot in the priesthood and one foot out, meaning he believes in his beliefs with the church, but then he also believes in his flesh as a man. So, with that being said, when the film first starts, we see Reverend Shannon up in front of the pulpit talking to a room full of people. And he eventually does his sermon and he keeps trying to say the words because I think it was a Catholic church. He tries to go through the words, say what he has to say, but then he's watching his audience and they're all whispering here and there. And then he finally just goes off on all of them. And what we find out in the first like 5 minutes of the film is that Reverend Shannon was messing around with one of the younger girls in the church. Mind you, she was probably 18 or 19, but still, it was still frowned upon because, they're not supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be man of God, not someone who's still trying to dive into the flesh world. So he goes off on them. He goes in. The church forces him into a sabbatical, and to make money, Reverend Shannon decides to sign up with Blake Tours, which is a Christian faith-based tour that they tour all the Catholic churches in Latin America, or specifically in Mexico. And then that's where we pick up Reverend Shannon with this group of ladies who come from a small Catholic all-girls school in the United States. And Reverend Shannon and Hank, his what's it called, a sidekick in the film or on the tour, they're driving these ladies from church to church, church to church. And while he's doing all this, there's a young girl named Charlotte, which is about the same age as he likes, which is 18, 19, or 20-year-olds. So he does have an infatuation with her, and she knows it, so she's playing on that. And so Ms. Fellows, which is let's say the mama bear of the whole girls group, she picks up on the energy and she goes to Shannon while they're driving towards Puerto Vallarta, and she tells him, stay away from Charlotte. I'm looking after her. If you touch her, I'm gonna have to take steps to turn you in. And he was just, swore up and down that that's what was happening. And then she says it again, don't make me take steps. And so she goes back to singing a song with the girls to get, things back up and cheery. So they stop in some other little small town in Mexico. And then that night, Charlotte comes into Reverend Shannon's room. He can't help himself. They start kissing. And then that's when Miss Fellows gets up, makes a big stink about Charlotte being in the room, and she pretty much calls him a beast. And an altercation goes down. So the next day they were actually driving into Puerto Vallarta to stay and continue the tour. But after Miss Fellows got with everyone and told them what he did, the tour was pretty much off. Like nobody was listening to Reverend Shannon and what he had to say. So he tried to make it up, and he knew his goose was cooked, so to say. He knew he was getting fired. So he told Hank, I'll take over the tour bus today. I'm going to drive. But we didn't know that he was trying to avoid Miss Fellows getting to the phone lines in Mexico. So he barrels through the little town of Puerto Vallarta, which was literally just a few clay buildings at that time in 1963, 64. He plows through town, full steam ahead, goes up the hill to where his friend's hotel is at. He jumps out the bus, tells the ladies about the hotel, and then he opens the hood to the van and takes out the distributor head and just runs up the hill to where his friend has. So that's when we meet Maxine, and she is Reverend Shannon's friend. And of course, when we meet Maxine, she's laughing at him because she's just like, this is usual Shannon. He always does this. He always does some crazy stuff like this. And then while she's laughing at him, her Reverend Shannon and Maxine have this conversation. She has her Cabana Beach Boys, who are shirtless, come out, and they're playing the maracas and sambas the whole time. And so we meet them for the first time. You can kind of speculate what's going on with that little relationship between the Beach Boys and Maxine, but we'll get back into that later in the storyline. So Reverend Shannon and her have this conversation. He's like, "We're staying for the night." She's like, "Oh, honey, we're closed. This is our low season time." And he's like, "No, I need you to make this happen because I'm about to get fired. This woman knows about what I did." And that's when Maxine told Reverend Shannon, she's just like, "Honey, you always pick the young ones. Why do you always got to pick the young ones? They're trouble, you know?" So anyway, she's just like, "Where's Fred?" And Fred is Maxine's husband. And Shannon hasn't seen Maxine in a long time, so he wasn't aware that old Fred had died. And he was just like, "Where's Fred? I gotta have Fred because Fred is the only one that would, get me back together, get me straight again." And that's when she's like, "Oh, honey, Fred's gone, And he was like, "Well, how did he go?" And she was just like, he was out there fishing like he normally does, catch and release. And she was just like, one night he just did too much fishing and drinking, and he just went out. And so Shannon was, of course, a little distraught by that. And then that's when Miss Fellows comes charging up the way, demanding he give back the distributor head. And that's when he was, told Maxine what happened. And she's laughing at Shannon because she heard the whole story from Miss Fellows. And that's when Miss Fellows was like, "Oh, yeah, it's so funny. Here we are, us girls, saving our money. And, this guy is here with his mind not on the church. He's here to get his rake off. And, you think it's funny." So, this whole altercation happens. And that's when Maxine was just like, "Fine, I'll check all of you guys in. You can stay in this room, that room," because one of the ladies was having some indigestion issues. So they had to stay for the night. And so this is all happening during the daytime. It's like pretty early in the day, I believe. So that's when Miss Fellows asked Maxine, "Do you have a phone line?" And Reverend Shannon was thinking she was going to say no, and I was going to save his hide. And so that's when Maxine was like, "Oh yeah, babe, just go in my office and it's right over there." And he was like, "When did you get a phone line?" She was just like, "Sweetie, you haven't been here in a long time. I've been doing some upgrades around here." So anyway, he's so nervous. He tells Fat Maxine what really went down with Charlotte and how much of a tease she is. And that's when she was just like, "Honey, you got to leave these girls alone." So the Beach Boys go down and they pick up everyone's luggage. And then this is where the iguana comes into play. While the Beach Boys are heading back up the hill because Maxine's hotel is overlooking the beach and the jungle, so it's kind of like on a hill. As the Beach Boys are coming back up, they notice an iguana in the jungle on the ground. So they chase it around for a little bit, and then that's when one of the Beach Boys says, "Senora, we caught it." So that's when Shannon and the rest of the ladies watch the Beach Boys take the iguana and tie it to a post. And then that's when Reverend Shannon was just like, "Well, what are you guys going to do with this thing?" And Maxine just casually said, "Oh, yeah, we're going to feed him, keep him tied up, and then we're going to eat him later on after he gets fattened up." And, every time I used to watch that scene, it's almost a metaphor of what we really do in our lives, to where we can, chain ourselves to a different reality, or someone or life can take us and chain us to a post, fatten us up, get comfortable, and then, towards the end of our lives, that's it. We never return back to our source where we came from. So that's what always stuck with me as I always watched The Night of the Iguana, is because I feel like we can chain ourselves at the mind, or chain ourselves physically into thinking we can't get back into our natural habitat. And this is our new reality now. So I think that's one of the concepts in the film that I interpreted as when the iguana was tied up to the post. So as the day continued on, because it's a long day, the day continues on, and then everyone is Miss Fellows makes her phone call, and because her brother's a judge, and so that's when she finds out the real truth about what Shannon did in his old town, the reason why he's on Blake's tour. And that's when she comes barreling out the office saying, seducer. So she's calling him a seducer in front of everyone. And he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then that's when she repeats it again. And she's just, Miss Fellows is like a typical angry person. And if she's angry and miserable, she's going to make sure everyone else's lives is angry and miserable. And that's what she was doing with Dr. Shannon. So she really threatened him to say, you're done. This is it. You're off this tour. You're fired. So being that Shannon was at the end of his rope, and think about it, guys, if you haven't seen the movie, I'm going to try to describe it to you guys. The iguana I was just mentioning is tied up, and he's tied to a rope. And Shannon is that iguana, where he's at the end of his rope. He's tied up. There's nowhere else for him to go. He's struggling against life, and he doesn't know what else to do. He's scared. He's nervous. So in his typical retaliation, instead of dealing with the problem, Shannon just takes his distributor head, hides it in his pants because the girls can't touch him or don't want to touch him. And then he gets a bottle of of rum cocoa and then heads into a room and starts drinking all night. So, or drinking all day. And that's where we end up with the Night of the Iguana. And so many other things happen. I'm not going to get in detail, but that is just the context of what we start with the movie. So with that being said, like I said, the iguana is chained up. Sometimes I feel like we do that as human beings. We chain ourselves. And as all this is happening, another couple, Nano and what's her name? Miss Jokes, which is Deborah Kerr. She's in the film. They come strolling up the hill looking for a room. And that's when Maxine tells them, honey, can I do anything for you? She's like, oh, Miss Jokes just didn't, she was skirting around the answer. And that's when Maxine was just like, what can I do for you? And then that's when she finally came on and said, oh, we're looking for 2 rooms. So she told him it was like, I think it was like 5 pesos or something like that. And they didn't have it. And then that's when Maxine was just like, sweetie, you got to go back somewhere else because I can't help you out. But the old man was, sweaty and old. And that's when Maxine had pity on him and then decided to take him in too for the night. So, that's another layer of this movie to pay attention to. So all this is going down. That's when Maxine, tells all the ladies, it's been a long day. Why don't I get you some food? Let's make something. So she goes in the kitchen, and Miss Jokes wants to help out because they were making sea bass for the night. And then that's when Maxine talks to Miss Jokes, and this is where the context of the film starts. Miss Jokes is kind of like the truth sayer in the whole film, to where she was asking Maxine about the Beach Boys, and then that's when Maxine comes clean about how the Beach Boys came about. The Beach Boys came about because I think Fred, her husband, was like 20, 25 years older than her. So by the time he was, in his old age, she was in her prime. And, she was just telling Miss Jokes in the kitchen while they were chopping the sea bass and steaming it. She was just like, oh, honey, I still have my knees. She's like, I love Fred, but he couldn't do anything for me anymore. So that's where I started doing night swims with the Beach Boys. Which means they were having a 3-way relationship at night. And she was telling Miss Jokes, I know the difference between, making love to someone, just going to bed with them. And she was just saying, that was her way. Frustration was just going to bed with these Beach Boys, but she didn't really love him because she loved Fred. And so that's when Miss Jokes was just like, well, that's great and all, but, you still have to give, Fred his respect. So they didn't see eye to eye on that. And that's when she asked, Miss Jokes about her grandfather Nano. And that's what I mean by attachment. So Maxine has her Beach Boys as a, the iguana is attached to its rope. And then now Miss Jelks, she has her grandfather Nano. So that was her string, her rope that she was hanging on to in life was Nano. She always did everything Nano wanted to do, and she never really paid attention to her own life. So every one of the three characters I mentioned had something that they tied themselves to, and Reverend Shannon never let his what's it called his priest priestly duties take over what he wanted in the flesh, and that was at the end of his rope with that. So there were so many different complex things in that movie that resonated within the storyline, but a lot of other things happen in the story. But when we finally get to the night, because a lot goes down to where the the ladies finally leave after a while. Charlotte and Hank were able to finally grab the distributor head because Shannon was too drunk to fend for himself anymore. So he tells them, "Ladies, grab your things. We're getting out of this goat shed." And that's when Maxine's like, "Goat shed? What are you? Who are you talking about? Talking about a goat shed? That's not what I'm renting around here." So it's like, whatever it is, we're out of here. So they finally they exit. They take all that negative energy with them and they exit. So now all that's left is Reverend Shannon, Miss Jelks, and Nano and Maxine, the Beach Boys. And this is the core, like I said, character formation that we're talking about. And then the iguana. And I'm about to touch on what all that means, or what I'm trying to talk about with the Night of the Iguana. Is many times in our lives, like we talked about, I feel like we tie ourselves up and we use either drugs, alcohol, sex, food, relationships to bind ourselves to this physical world, and then we forget our true potential. Just like with that iguana, even in the few hours it was tied up, it in that moment just forgot about its surroundings because they were feeding it so well. It didn't need to search for anything else, so it just got so comfortable tied up to that rope. It really didn't struggle against the rope anymore. And that's what I always took away from that movie, is because I feel like we do a lot of that same stuff in real life, and we just disguise our lives with these other things, and we never question ourselves to understand the root of where that came from. How did it start? But when you start awakening and doing the work, you can start finally digging into your subconscious, digging into your deep ocean, and figuring out where it started, why it started. And I'll give you an example. Um, as I've talked about in my podcast episodes, I used to be a heavy drinker. I still drink now, but it's not the same as it was before. And the reason why I said I was a heavy drinker was because I it took me a years, decades to find out why I was still drinking heavily. And what I found out this year is I've been drinking heavily is because as a young boy, everyone kept telling me that, Al, you have these extraordinary gifts within inside of you. You're, uh, you can, see things on the other side. You're a great teacher. You're going to be a pastor one day. And, these are all things that Al was afraid to do. So I didn't want to talk with the spiritual realm. I never wanted to do that when I was a young boy because I was afraid of it. I always felt that was my dad's journey. That wasn't mine. And then as far as speaking, I was afraid to speak, like we talked about in my previous episodes. I always didn't like my voice, or I didn't like the way it sounded, or how I pronounced things. So I didn't want to talk in front of people. So that terrified the heck out of me. And then as far as being a pastor, I'm like, well, what do I have to say? I mean, that's my dad. That's his job. That's not what I want to do. I just want to be a regular boy, living my regular life in Sacramento, and just forego all that stuff. So what that materialized into as a grown adult is I started drinking heavily to numb my light, to um, disconnect the receptor that was in the grand scheme of my mind, of my consciousness, of my subconsciousness. I wanted to disconnect all that receiver. So I would drink heavily. I would drink all the time, even during the middle of the week, even before I started work as a flight attendant. It was just always a lot of alcohol consumption. And when I was in my 20s and 30s, if you guys met me at that time, I could drink everyone under the table. And I used to take pride in that. Like I would just stand, toe to toe, shoulder to shoulder people and just shoot things back. There's another drink, pass it to Al. He's going to finish it off. So that was my life for a very long time. And it wasn't until probably 40, 42, 43 where I finally started to back off a little bit, but it really wasn't that much. I was still pretending as if I was drinking as I was 24, 25 again. And like I said, it wasn't until this awakening experience to where I started to dive into my mind and figure out where the heavy drinking came from. And that's what stemmed from, that's the emotion that started the heavy drinking. That was my catalyst into drinking, was I was dimming my light, not coming into my full potential as a human being and as a spiritual light being. I wanted to dim it with alcohol. And that's what I did for probably about 43, 44 years up until this year. So this trip to Puerto Vallarta for me was that liberating trip to see if I can rise above the physical part of Al and still have a good time, but without all the excessive drinking. So that's what brought me back to this movie, to explain to you guys of what I mean by, there was a time where I was tied up at the end of my rope in life, and I was at Iguana getting fat, if not in physically, but in the mind, to where you're so used to all of these physical things, to make you feel good. It's just a disguise to burying something that you don't want to deal with. So you rather just use other things. And a lot of the time, other people, relationships, that's another thing that can deter you from really dealing with where that behavior came from. So that's why I always like the movie The Night of the Iguana, is because it showed me and taught me. And when I look back at it with these open eyes of mine now, I can see all the different multi-layer concepts within the movie. Now, getting back to the movie a little bit, like I said, now we're turning, once the ladies leave, Shannon, like I said, feels like he's at the end of this rope, and he tells Miss Jokes he's going in for the long swim to China. And Miss Jokes took that as a blatant suicide warning. So Shannon goes bolting down the hill, and that's when Miss Jokes told Maxine what he said to her, and she sent her Beach Boys down to go get him. So they're in the middle of the ocean. They go get him. So they catch him, and then the movie pans back to the veranda of the hotel. And it's nighttime now because the moon is out. So there's Reverend Shannon tied up like the iguana. He's in a rope hammock with his feet bound, hands bound, mouth with scotch tape over it. So he's completely bound up because he's trying to set himself free, and he can't get free from himself. So that's another concept of the movie, is sometimes we do that. We're just so confined, we don't know how to get out of the situation. And I think that's what the iguana was trying to do. It was nighttime now, and it was trying to, move, but it couldn't. And Shannon was doing that same behavior, thrashing around, trying to get out of there, but he can't move. So that's when Maxine, comes to his bedside, and she tries to calm him down with some talk. It's not working. So Miss Jokes comes along with some tea she had picked up in China on her Nano's travels. And she's like, honey, why don't you go in the kitchen, heat this up, come back out. It will soothe him. Heat and this tea will soothe him. So Maxine's like, fine, honey, you go deal with him. I tried it my way. So she goes in the kitchen, makes the tea, comes back out. And if you guys have never let tea, cool off before, it's scalding hot. So Maxine is there because she's super frustrated. She's trying to get this tea down Shannon's throat, It burns his mouth. He's thrashing some more. And that's when Sheila's just like, fine. If that's the way you want to have it, honey, have at it. I'm done. So she calls her Beach Boys and, to release Maxine, to release her frustrations and she's at the end of her rope. She decides to have a night swim with the Beach Boys. So they go charging down the wave. And then that's when Reverend Shannon and Miss Jelks has time to talk about Shannon's true problems with the world and his true problems with himself. So he's having this free conversation with Miss Jelks, and he's finally able to get to the root of his issues. And then he asks Miss Jelks about her life, and she's able to get to the root issues of why she's so um, in tune with her grandfather, and why she's always been ignoring her own life for him. So they have this cathartic moment out there on the veranda. And then while they're having this moment, we pan over to Maxine, who's having a night swim with the boys. And, apparently they're in a three-way. So she's kissing one, she's leaning her head back, kisses the other, and they're going at it. And then, but in the 1960s way, it wasn't raunchy like it is now. But they're in the middle of the ocean doing their thing. And then that's when she just pushes the boys off of her, and she just goes running down the beach. And then that's when the clouds of thunder start. Anytime you have clouds of thunder and rain in a movie, that always means the characters are going through some cathartic, transformative emotion. And they always use thunder and rain to either make it a big calamity, or they use rain, to cleanse everything, cleanse the characters. So that's exactly what happened. So Maxine goes back up there wet, and then she's looking at these two. And by the time she comes back up to the veranda, Shannon is out of his constraints, and he is about to set the iguana free. And then that's when Maxine was just like, "What are you doing?" And he's just like, "We're setting this God's creature free. It needs to be in its natural habitat. It doesn't need to be in this habitat. It needs to be back out where it can be awesome and great again." And so she's so distraught by that. But Shannon was already halfway let in. The creature surprisingly stayed there for a while. It didn't move, and then that's when Shannon shooed it off, and it finally scampered into the jungle, and it just went off into its own thing. And I feel like that's what sometimes that happens with us. Even when we are set free from our own constraints, we don't know where to go, because we've forgotten in that moment that we are set free. And I went through that this year too, when I finally freed myself from Al and Al's emotions and other little traumas he made up in his life. I didn't know where to go until, like I said, someone had to point me in the direction, or my higher self had to shift me in the direction of where I needed to go. And then that's what pointed me to this podcast and talking with all of you guys. So that's what I mean by sometimes, even after you guys do the work, even after you start doing the mental deep dives, there is still a point where you're just like, okay, I think I've done the work. My eyes are open, my ears are open, my soul's open. Now, where do I go? And then this is where another step in the awakening process I challenge you guys to start is, getting back to what you love to do, getting back into what you like to do, finding a passion again. And I met some people this weekend to where they're like, I don't have any passions, I don't have any talents. And I always guide them back to your childhood. What did you like to do as a girl? What did you like to do as a boy? What made you extremely blissful and happy when you did it? Now, like I said, these memories take a while and it takes work. But once you do start recalling these things of, your life between, let's say, the ages of 1 to 8 or 1 to 9, then you start realizing that, oh my gosh, I miss doing that. Oh my gosh, why did I stop doing that? And then once you start making the bridge and connection to how you forgot how to do those things and how it manifested as an adult, and you start doing adult things, then you start realizing, oh, this is where that came from. Oh, this is where that came from. this emotion or trauma that I buried, this is why I'm doing this now. So that's what I mean by getting back in touch with your childhood, guys, is making that bridge, making that gap between why you stopped doing something you love doing, who made you stop doing it, or maybe you made yourself stop doing it. And then those of you who feel like you're at the end of your rope, it's never too late to wake up, guys, and you have to start somewhere. Even if that's meditation, breath work, listening to me, reading books. There's so many tools out there that I think everyone can start doing. And like I said, it's never too late to start waking back up to yourself, waking back up to your higher conscious self, and coming back into your light, and not living in darkness anymore. And that's what I really was trying to go over to you guys about this film, is because I just love how, after this night and they set the iguana free. I'll wrap this up because I've been talking for a while. So after the night of the iguana, because that's what the night of the iguana is really about, is Shannon finally let go of the young girls and wanting to be a priest. He let that go. Being Reverend Shannon, he let go of that identity. Maxine, at the end of the night, she lets go of the Beach Boys. She tells herself that she's more than just night romps in the ocean with two handsome Latino guys. She told herself she's more than that. And then with Miss Jelks, her night of the iguana freedom was when she was talking with Reverend Shannon at the time. And as soon as the iguana was free, they all went back to Nano because he's like, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. So he's been working on this poem for years, according to Miss Jelks. So he finally recites the poem. He finishes the poem. And so he feels like his whole life task is done. And so he asked Maxine to roll him out or Miss Jelks to roll him out towards the veranda so he can smell the ocean, although he couldn't see it that well because he was a little blind too. He was like, I just want to smell the ocean, because his character believed the ocean is the cradle of life. And he was like, I want to smell the cradle of life before I leave this planet. So they roll him out. And lo and behold, as they're rolling Nano out towards the veranda to smell the ocean, all of a sudden the clouds clear up, the bright silvery moon comes out and lights up the canopy of the whole entire jungle, and also the people who are involved in this night of freedom. And as they're all talking amongst themselves, Nano breathes in one more time and he slumps down in his chair. And then that's when Maxine looks over. She was just like, is he okay? And then that's when Miss Joke's like, oh no, Nano does it all the time. He takes random naps. So Maxine goes back to his chair and she's like, oh honey, he's not asleep. He's gone. And Miss Jokes was just like, no. So she goes over and of course they, put their finger up to his nose and there's no air. And so she goes into the room, takes a few deep breaths and just calms herself down. And so I think in that moment, she finally had to snip the cord and then now realize that she's now by herself, and now she has to focus on her life, and she has to realize what she wants in life. Nano is no longer guiding her. She has to go out and make a living for herself and see if everything that he taught her is going to resonate with her as she goes forward. So the next morning, Miss Jokes, Shannon, and Maxine all come together. Maxine's a hot mess. She's just on rum cocoa trying to figure things out. And she tells Miss Jokes and Shannon, why don't you two stay here? I'll go back to Texas and get my life together. And then that's when Miss Jokes told him, no, I did some thinking overnight. She's just like, I'm not supposed to be here. I need to be somewhere else. So she leaves. And then that's when Shannon told Maxine, I know you said earlier today that you need a man around here. I want to be that man for you. And so that's what I mean by he let go of the young girls, and he always had love for Maxine, and Maxine had love for him. And that's how the movie ends. So with all that being said, after all this time, is when we finally free ourselves, guys, we can finally come into our true potential. We can finally make space when we are free in the mind and free in the body, to fall back in love, to fall back in love with yourself, to fall back in love with things that you want to do in your life. And that comes with freedom in the mind. We have to break those chains and figure out why we got tied up and why we got so fattened up in this life. And I think that's a really profound thing to walk away from a movie, and which we don't have those many kind of type of movies anymore, where you learn something from a movie. But if you guys like to watch the movie, like I said, it's the Night of the Iguana from 1964 by Tennessee Williams. And that's what I had to say about that. And that's what I wanted to talk about with my Night of the Iguana. Is I felt like I was liberated as I was coming down to Puerto Vallarta on Friday, because I was not only testing myself, but I felt the universe was testing me in this awakening journey, and I was just testing myself to see if I can navigate my life without all this booze and alcohol that I need to consume all the time and constantly. I felt like I took my time with it. And the picture that I took, and you guys probably saw that on social media, of where I was on the seahorse and the boy, or I think it's called the boy and the seahorse, out there in Puerto Vallarta on the beach next to Mantamar. I told my friend Steve, I'm like, when we went to the beach that day, I'm like, I just want to take a picture with the statue finally. So I climbed up there without any fear, and I just, put my arm up, and then we were taking a few pictures, and there's something that said, throw your head back and have no fear. It's gonna be fine. So that's when you guys see me stretched up in the air like that. And a buddy of mine was just like, "You look so liberated," and I was just like, "That's because I am." So with him saying that, it just took me to this episode, to reason why I had to talk to you guys about it. And that's how I've been feeling in my life for the especially last, I would say, week or two. I've been feeling very liberated from where I was before. And I'm going to start with the trip. So, Friday, we make our journey down towards Puerto Vallarta. Let me just preface this. So, Aunt Dorothy, this is for you. I know you like my travel experiences. So I'll just share this with you, and hopefully you can live through me, like I always say. Uh, and then for everyone else, this is just me sharing my life with my listeners out there. So Friday, since we're in San Diego, we crossed to the CBX border, which is like a land border that connects San Diego and Tijuana. So we go through CBX. We take our flight down to Valaris. I take a nap. I read a little bit, which is my next episode is going to be about that. And we land in Puerto Vallarta. First thing we do is change. We're all hungry, so we go eat. So this is really good taco spot right at the entrance of the Los Muertos Pier out there in Zona Romantica. And we're sitting there that afternoon having tacos. And then lo and behold, my friend Anthony stops by with his buddies. So that was like synchronicity number one, because I knew they were coming down, but I didn't know when we were all going to meet. So I say hi to them. We have this whole thing. We're like, we got to hang. We're going to hang. Let's do it this whole weekend. So we did that. And so Friday, was kind of chill. We go back out go up to the room, change, and then we head out for drinks. And so we go to the Pinnacle. If you guys have been out there before, Pinnacle is that huge condominium hotel building, and it's one of the tallest ones in Puerto Vallarta, I think, because it overlooks the bay. If you guys have ever been out to Puerto Vallarta, the bay is a crescent shape, like the moon is sometimes, depending on its phase, and it kind of separates out from the Pacific Ocean. So it's like this nice little cove, and you overlooks that. It was evening. We had some cocktails because of the great happy hour there. But they weren't really strong cocktails. Just nice to be up there, and we got to know the party, which was Steve, Gil, Roz, and then Trish. So we all get to know each other out there, and then the girls retire, so they go back to the room because they had just started watching Sense Eight, and so they go back to the room. So it's just the boys. So we go over to Twisted Palm, which is another really great spot if you guys are ever out there in Puerto Vallarta. So you guys can write all this stuff down. So we started at Pinnacle, then we went over to Twisted Palm, which is over by if you guys have been out before, Mr. Flamingo's or El Sonador, which is another good bar too. It's across the street from there. So we go up there because it's up some stairs. Nobody's there. It's just us. I think it was like a few locals there. And so we go up to the bar and, we order margaritas because it's been a long time since all of us had margaritas. And they were very good. The bartender made them very strong. And so we have round one. And as we're having round one, we this movie is playing on the background because at the Twisted Palm, there's always a movie playing, a classic movie playing. And this particular night, it was The Goodfellas, and I'm like, shh, I haven't seen this thing in like forever. So we're sitting there watching that. We have round two, which we got to know the bartender, so they were even stronger. So by the time that finished up, I was like, Steve, I gotta eat. So we all split up. We go eat. We eat this really good. We went to this taco shop, which was open late. We had this really cute server, Arturo, which I wasn't sure if he was one of us or not, but I think he was. Wasn't entirely sure, but we had good food there. And then I think we went to one more bar, and then we went upstairs because it was kind of late. So that was Friday night. Saturday night, we get up, and we go eat at Coco's Kitchen, which is another good spot if you guys are ever hungry for a really good breakfast. So we ate there, and then we went over to Mantamar. And my friend Anthony and his buddies were going to be there too. So we go over to Mantamar, and then we all meet up because eventually they come out because they had a interesting night out there. And so they come out and meet us, and then while we're all doing our thing, because they had eaten lunch yet, that's when I decided to tell Steve, let's go capture this picture and see what turns up of it. So that's where the picture of me on the seahorse came about. Was I wanted to finally have a good picture in Puerto Vallarta. So I'll probably post that as the background for this video today. And so that happens, and then of course, we order some drinks. We start, getting a little loose, and then the boys want to go in the pool. We meet all kinds of people. Everyone from everywhere was at that pool that day, and it felt just really liberating that I could move through a crowd now and really be unafraid and navigate that. Like I said, I met so many people that day. It was crazy. So we had a good time going in and out the pool, like meeting people. And let's see what else happened. Oh yeah, we had some lunch. Wrapped Mantamar up around, I think it was on like 4 or 5 o'clock. No, it had been 5. No, it had to have been 6 because the sun was going down. So we captured a few more photos, and then we go up to our rooftop. After that, no, it was 5. I forgot about that. No, we didn't go to a rooftop. I think we went to go change, and then I met the boys over at Pancho's Tacos. If you guys have been onto there, that is a really good taco shop. However, it's a very popular taco shop. We were sitting right by the kiln or the fire where they have the meat roasting, which is very good, by the way, when it's charred. But it was a hot day, and it was hot right in front of that heater. So we were all sweating trying to devour these really yummy tacos. So I eat dinner with the boys, bid them goodbye. I'm like, hey guys, let's let me know what time you guys are going out. Let's have fun tonight because it was the last night in Puerto Vallarta before they left. So they wanted to bar hop. So I'm like, I'm down. I'm going to tell the other guys, let's do it. So we did it. So go back to the room, change, put on a cute outfit for the night because I knew I was going to be out and about. Didn't nap, just went straight back out with Steve. And we go to the Twisted Palm, and we didn't know they were closed for the weekend, which is kind of odd, but that's their hours. So it's like, what do we do now? So I'm like, well, let's go over to El Sonador. which is another really good bar. It's not really gay, but it's a cool bar. So for all the people looking for like a dive bar, at the bottom is the dive bar, which is like pool tables, darts, early 2000s, 90s, 80s rock. And then that's the dive bar. But then when you climb the stairs, you go up to the swanky pop lounge. That's kind of cool. Outdoor space because you can look up at the night sky. So that was really beautiful. So we order just Don Julio on the rocks because tequila is pretty nice out there. So we didn't need the mixer that day. So we're just warming up, chit chatting, feeling the nice air, nice night air. That was really beautiful. Hearing everyone on the street below chit chatting, having fun. So we tell the LA boys that where we're at. And then we met another friend of ours, Charles, and his friend Monica. So we're all just grooving and vibing once the boys arrive. We get through one round, and then the boys are ready to go. They look at everyone like, "Hey guys," I'm like, "Come on, Steve, let's pay the bill. Let's go." So we bid everyone goodbye, Monica and Charles, and then it's just me, the LA boys, and Steve, and we all go out to Mr. Flamingo's, which is right in the corner of one of the main streets intersections out there, and what's it called? We go to the bar, get a few more rounds, and then we just start drinking and dancing, which is very liberating. Oh, I forgot to mention about Friday at Twisted Palm. As we're making our way over to Twisted Palm that Friday night, I'm on the street, we're walking. Steve's a little ahead of me, and I meet this guy. He says, "Hola, my amigo," and I was like, "Hola, hola." And then we not run into, so we see Sean T on the street, and the guy I met literally was just, we're both yelling at his name, no response, but that's cool. I get it. So we're just laughing on, vibing on that. And he tells me that he's from Jalisco, which is the state of Mexico that Puerto Vallarta is in. And, Friday night, Steve and Gil are rushing over to Twisted Palm. And I'm kind of hanging back and talking with this guy. And he was like, "Well, what are you doing the rest of the night?" And I told him we were just going up to, what's it called? Twisted Palm. This was Friday. And then, we were just having this really serendipitous conversation. And he was just like, "Thank you for saying hello to me." And he told me his whole story and what that was about. And he was just like, "I just want to tell you, I can see your aura." And I'm like, "No, you can't." He's like, "No, today is like this radiant, you're like exuding this radiant blue color from yourself." And, he was just like, keep letting that spiritual light come through. So even in in the midst of me going to a Twisted Palm, I meet this random stranger on the street, giving me encouragement to keep doing what I'm doing. And he didn't even know what I've been doing in my life. He was just like, "I can see you, brother. Keep doing what you're doing. You have this blue glow of protection all around you." And then I look at his bracelet, and he has an evil eye bracelet on. So I could tell he was connected too. So that was a really, like I said, serendipitous number one. I forgot about that. We're talking about serendipity. That was serendipity number one. And that was on Friday night. And then let me jump back into Saturday, which was Mr. Flamenco's. So we order our first round of drinks. And of course, Whitney and Whitney's on there. Lots of, we miss her too. Yeah, it's just a lot of good music playing that day, and we're just all dancing to it. And so Anthony has never seen me dance before, and he was just like, "I've never seen you let loose like this before." And I said that's because I was always afraid people would judge me when I danced, so I just never did it in front of people like I used to when I was in my 20s. And he was just like, "Well, let's just keep doing it. Let's keep dancing." So we're dancing. I'm dancing with a friend Corey, dancing with the other friend. It started attracting other people. They meet these other guys from their cruise, which was on Friday. And so it just turned this whole group of people just vibing and grooving. and just being free, liberated people. And however we danced, we just danced. It was great. And so that I've lost track of time. If you guys don't know me, I do not like to be on my phone when I'm with my friends. So I had turned my phone to airplane mode. I zipped it up in my, because I had a fanny pack on that night. I zipped into my fanny pack and just, lost track of time and was just a human being. I forgot all about this, esoteric, higher self stuff. I was just being Al and living this experience, living this dream. As well, within my inner self was enjoying this dream, and Al is out there physically dancing and dancing with guys and just having a blast out here in this physical realm. So both of us were having a really good time together, and I was conscious about it. That's the thing about what I'm trying to say about this whole experience is, yeah, I did have cocktails, not going to lie about that, but like I just mentioned, I was still conscious about it. I still know who I danced with. I still know what we talked about. I was still very conscious about how I moved, when I dipped it low, when I picked it back up. Especially when Madonna's Vogue came on, we were voguing for a little bit. I remember how to do that as a kid for my dance school days. So all of that came to play when I was out there in Puerto Vallarta just dancing. So we got tuckered out there for a little while, so the boys wanted to mix it up. So we went over to Industry, which is right across the street. And if you guys have never been to Industry before, Industry is like the big dance club there. So everyone's there just dancing. We could have gone to La Noche, but I think there was a drag show that night. We weren't interested in that. So we just wanted to dance and have fun and let loose. So the Industry, more pop music, more stuff that we used to listen to. And, that's when we really just let it loose. So we're just dancing with strangers. When you attract that liberated, fun energy, it starts attracting other people. So it just turned this whole thing out there in at Industry, and I was sweaty, like my clothes were soaked, and I'm like, I haven't felt this in like decades. Feeling this kind of a feeling where I can just dance and dance and dance and not really feel tired. And I was just hyped up on life. It was just such a great feeling, and like I said, a very liberated feeling. I should have titled this episode "Liberation," but that's the word I'm going with. That's what I'm vibing on right now. It's liberating. So we're doing that for a long time. We were on the dance floor for a very long time. Drinks just kept coming. I don't know where they kept coming from. And the guys that joined us, I thought they were Canadians, but they were actually from Louisville, Kentucky. And as we're taking a break during dance, because some of the music slowed down for a little bit, so we can listen to ourselves. And I said, sometimes I go out to Louisville. He's like, no, you don't. And I told him what I did at work, and that's when he was like, you know what? Let's exchange numbers. The next time you're out there in Louisville, we're gonna take you out. I'm like, no, you guys are not. No, he pulls out his phone, and that's when he puts it. Anyway, I gotta text him, by the way, now that I'm talking about it. So that's what I mean by like these serendipitous moments of just being free enough to put myself out there, or to start meeting people again and being free and liberated in that feeling. It just felt good to just lose myself and just be Al, or just be my higher self. And so my higher self was having a really good time, because it still continued to let me do everything I wanted to do. So we get back to dancing after all that, and then the boys wanted to change it up and go over to Studs. If you guys never been to Studs before, it's down the street it's a block over from Industry. So we walk over there. It's supposed to be a little kink bar in Puerto Vallarta, but it wasn't much kink going on that night. It was kind of subdued. They had a few dancers up there, but not really a lot. So we're just kind of standing around. That's when Corey was just like, my thumb is throbbing because he had lost his fingernail that day. He's like, I'm gonna go back to the room and get back on painkillers, and then the other guys are ready to go. So it was just me, Anthony, his other friend, left over. So we were just like, well, we don't want to stay here, so we walked back over to Industry. And by the time we walked back over to Industry, it was kind of dead because it was a Saturday night in the low season. So we went back over there, and then we just looked at each other and said, let's just call it a night. I don't know what time it was, but we do that. We call it night, walk the boys back to their intersection, hug them, bid them goodbye, wish them good luck tomorrow on their flights because they were I think they were non-revving back to the West Coast. And so that was my Saturday night. And at first, when I let the boys go, I was somehow in a rush to get back to our Airbnb, which was by the beach. And I'm rushing, rushing, rushing. And then maybe a few blocks after that, I just said, why am I rushing? And then that's when I started to evoke my power of contemplation, which was to breathe slowly and deeply. And I reminded myself, Al, enjoy this moment, enjoy the night air, and just saunter back to the Airbnb. There's no rush. And that's exactly what I did. I slowed my steps down. I enjoyed the scenery. I enjoyed the cobblestone, the bright colored buildings, the beautiful hotels with their roofs of tile. It's just a really beautiful spot in the romantic zone. So I'm just winding through little street after little street, coming back to the Airbnb we stayed at, and I could hear the ocean, crashing against the sand as I'm walking back to the Airbnb and looking up at the night sky. And I believe I believe the moon was still out. So I was looking up at the silvery sun, the silvery light coming from the moon, and feeling that feminine energy coming into me. So it was just a really lovely walk back to my B&B. And I changed out my sweaty clothes, and then I think I made one more cocktail. It wasn't that strong. It was just a little something, and I just sat out there on our balcony, enjoyed the moonlight, enjoyed the sound because it was really peaceful that night. And then I just went to bed, enjoyed it. And then that's when Sunday rolled around. Let's see, Sunday. Oh yeah, Sunday was we went to we cooked breakfast that morning. Went to Sapphire. If you guys know what Sapphire is another beach club right next door to Mantamar and Blue Chairs. So we spent the afternoon out there. I finished my book, which is I'm going to talk about with you guys. I finished it out there at Sapphire that afternoon. And if you guys have never been out there before, there's so many people hawking their little jewelry or knickknacks that they want to sell to us. So I was constantly telling people, no, no gracias the whole time. I wish we were. Had a sign up because I saw a lady the day before. She had a sign of no gracias in front of her tent. I thought that was great. But anyway, so I'm out there reading. I finally turn my back to, these people who are passing up and down the aisles of our beach chairs, trying to finish my book because I'm like 10 pages away. And every now and then we do have these massage therapists come through and ask for the massage. And they kept asking me, and I kept turning all of them down. I'm like, I don't want a massage. Don't touch me. It's fine. But, this one little cute kid comes along and, he looks at me, I look at him, I was just like, potentially. And then that's when my friends, my pals, Steve and Gil were just like, yeah, that one's cute. We could do that. Day. Anyway, I finished my book. I was able to finally have some real cocktails because I was taking it easy at first. I was having cervezas, which is just beer. And I was just taking it easy at first because we had a long night before, like I said. And so meet him. His name's Chris. We finally go have a massage. That was great. And then, yeah, it was a little happy ending. I'm not going to lie about that. That was fun. So I finished my massage with Chris, and then I come back totally relaxed. Roz and Steve are having shots, and they're like, you want one? I'm like, yeah, why not? I'm done with my massage. I'm totally relaxed. Thanks to this little kid. So he actually did a good job. It wasn't just that. He actually did a good job. He must have released a whole bunch of, stale energy in my body because it just really felt free and light again. So we and Roz are on the beach talking about, she's sharing with me that, she sees the light in me. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. That's serendipitous. She's like, what are you talking about? And I was just like, thank you for saying that. I said, that's what I've been trying to, evolve to, is that people just finally seeing my light and evolving out of this avatar. And she's like, oh my God, did you just call this an avatar? And I'm like, yeah, I did. I said, this is what I think of what this fleshly body is. The light you're seeing is, the light being within me. But I'm like, what you're physically seeing is just a brown avatar. And she was just like, oh my God. She's like, I've always felt this way about myself. I just never could pinpoint what it's called. So we're having this whole esoteric higher self conversation out there on the beach, and the guys are looking at us like, what the heck are these two smoking? But me and Roz bonded that afternoon out there on the beach, talking about concepts of light, talking about concepts of your true authentic self and how to get back to that true authentic self. And that's when I shared with Roz that I had a podcast, and she was like, oh my God, I have to listen to it. So Roz, hopefully you're listening to this. Thank you for this beautiful conversation out there on the beach. It was much appreciated. So we bonded on that. And so I thank you for that. So it was getting late. We wrapped things up. We're not completely done yet. So that's when the girls were just like, hey guys, let's go up to your pool and see what that's looking like. So they come back with us, and I wasn't ready for what we're about to see because I haven't been up there until Sunday afternoon, which was, the usual all white with what's called black, probably like wood paneling on the floors. But once you climb the stairs, it was just like this all white, zero gravity, blue turquoise tile pool. So it was like blue and a beautiful turquoise blue and just a stark white. It was something out of a Grecian movie. It was so beautiful, and it overlooked the cove of Puerto Vallarta. You could see the whole entire cove, and it was just such a beautiful sight. So we were facing west, which is where the sun was dipping below the horizon, which was a deep blue ocean out there, beyond the zero gravity horizon of the pool. And then to the south of us were these beautiful, tall, mountainous jungles, just thick with green flora and palm trees, which is tucked right up behind some of the hotels. That's how close the city is to nature out there in Puerto Vallarta. It could be, literally yards away from where you're staying. And then to the north of us was, Nuevo Puerto Vallarta, which is New Puerto Vallarta, where all the big resorts are. So if you guys are ever out there, just be mindful of that, of where your hotel's at. If it's Zona Romantica, that means you're in the old part of town, which is the older Spanish-looking style or Mexican style colonial buildings. And then out in Nuevo Puerto Vallarta, that's where all the bigger resorts are. So depending on what you guys want to do, for those of you travelers out there, I highly suggest the romantic zone. If you guys want to stay in town where the action's at. For those of you who do like a taste of home and, your new big resorts, then go out towards New Puerto Vallarta. But you can still come into town, but it's just a pain to keep going back and forth. But anyway, back to Sunday. So we just had this really beautiful time as just four human beings experiencing this life in this pool. And it was just beautiful watching the sun set on the horizon. So we did that until the sun set. And then that's when we decided to go to meet our friend Charles at this seafood restaurant, which was another spot that I wanted to talk to you guys about on this podcast. I wasn't expecting this place, but it's tucked away. I want to say a little further east from where all the action is. Trying to find the name of this place because I took a picture of it. Let's see. I hope I'm saying it right. It's Itamar, Itamar. And it's a seafood restaurant, like I said, tucked away in one of the neighborhoods in Puerto Vallarta, in the older part of Puerto Vallarta. And at first when we got there, we were all just going to order entrees. And then that's when the owner comes out because he knows Charles personally and he greets all of us. And he was just like, why don't you guys just have the unlimited drinks and food package, which was like, I don't know, 50, 56 bucks in US money. And so we all looked at it. We're like, yeah, that can work for all of us. Besides one, because Trisha, she's on a road to sobriety, so she didn't want the drink package. So she just told the owner, "Hey, guy, hey, I'm just on my own liberation journey of this." So she was testing herself to see if she could keep herself from drinking alcohol, and she did. I'm so proud of her. So Trish, if you're listening to this thing, I'm really proud of you for standing your ground. You did not touch one drop of alcohol, which I think is great. So you two were on a liberation journey and a test. So congratulations to you for that. But yeah, she stuck to her guns. She only had her entree, which was good too. It was like there's a shrimp pasta, which was really good. But the rest of us, I'll just tell you guys about the courses. It was a whole bunch of seafood tapas coming out of this. So we started with let's see, get this right on Dorothy. So we started with a round of what's that called? Trying to remember the name of it now. Clams. What is that? Yeah, we started with the clams. Trying to find the name of it. Uh, anyway, yeah, we started with that, and then we went to a yellow tuna, which was a really good salad dish, and then we went over to, I think it was marlin. That was another exotic fish we had, and then we ended at the tapas with an octopus dish, and then the main course came out, which was the fresh caught sea bass, and I hadn't had sea bass that flaky and that light before, and it was just done in a really nice, lightly brushed tomato base, something they cooked up in the kitchen, along with shrimp and some vegetables. By the time we got to the sea bass, we were all like, we are stuffed. And the vibe was to go out that night. And I looked at Steve, he looked at me. I'm like shaking my head, like, there's no way we're going out. So after they all had dessert, because I didn't have dessert, that's one thing I did say no to. But I had a beautiful sangria. I forgot about that. Really beautiful red base. I think it was a Cabernet sangria. That was delicious. So it was a chill night from the other two previous nights we had. And so we wrapped things up, and we were going to take a walk back. A Uber ride back. And then that's when Charles was just like, guys, it's literally right down the street. It's like on the straight, avenue. He's like, we can just walk back. And I told others, I'm like, let's just enjoy the night. We just ate a whole bunch of food. Let's channel our European vibe and let's be Europeans in Mexico and just walk back to our hotels. And that's what we did. We all walked back. The girls wanted chocolates to take home and hot chocolate. Not sure why they wanted hot chocolate at 10 o'clock at night, but they did. So after we get the hot chocolate, we all walked back. And we're all just talking and laughing and bonding. And by the time we get to our B&Bs, we're there. And that's when Roz was just like, we're already here. And I'm like, this is what happens when you put phones away and you just start talking with people. So that's what I took away from that night, is like, nobody was really in their phones. Everyone was just having an experience together, and we got to know each other over really great food. So shout out to the owner. He really showed us some really great hospitality out there at his restaurant. So if you guys are listening, Itamar is a really good restaurant to go to if you guys look for something good outside of tacos and burritos out there in Mexico and Puerto Vallarta. Which brings us to Monday. And Monday is this day of serendipity. And I'm going to say that again. this was a day of serendipity. So Friday, I didn't tell you guys this either. So Friday, I was walking back. I was walking my friends back to our hotel, our B and B, and this guy. Sometimes there's, and you guys have been out there to Puerto Vallarta or places in Mexico. There's people always trying to sell you something. So there was this guy behind this booth, and the shirt or the tank top I was wearing was it said tacos and tequila, and he was just like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "Hey, I'm doing great." And I was kind of moving along. He was like, "Tequila." Guess what, bro? I have a tequila tour. I'm like, "Do you have a tequila tour here in Puerto Vallarta?" He was like, "Yes." And I never asked how many stops it took. I just heard tequila. So I was like, I'm down. So I was just like, what all is going to cost? Because there's always a cost when people are selling you stuff, right? So he's like, oh, it's usually about $22. I'll knock off 10. And it just, no, he said he would knock off 12. So it came in like $10. I was like, are you sure? 10 US. He was just like, yeah. And I was just like, all right, we're going to try the tequila tour. And then, we finally introduced himself as Amir. And I told him I was Al. And I said, Amir, I said, that's Middle Eastern in origins. He was like, Egypt to be exact. So we had this whole, I would say, serendipitous conversation about Egypt. And we were both talking about history of Egypt. And he was like, well, how do you know all this stuff? And I told him, I was a history major in school. And he was just like, here's my number. If you want to go to Egypt, I'll get people in contact that I know, and they can take you on the Nile cruise you always wanted to go on. And I was like, we had this whole conversation about that. So anyway, back to the ticket. I purchased a ticket, and I get his number, and he writes my name in Arabic, which is a very beautiful, lettering. And so I took that home with me. So like I said, I booked the tour on Monday. So this is where we get into Monday. So it was a city / tequila tour. And I got up that morning around 8 o'clock, feeling good. I didn't eat anything because I really wanted to just taste tequila that day. And so I put on my tequila and taco shirt again because I wanted to evoke that vibe for the day, which is really what I wanted to do. And then simultaneously, as I'm doing that, Roz, Trish, and Steve are getting ready to take their stair hike out there in Puerto Vallarta. And so they invited me to it. I'm like, no, guys, I got to be at the Arcos Hotel at 9:10. I can't be late. So we all split up on our journeys. They start at 8:30. I start my journey at 9. So I get to the Arcos Hotel. The van is waiting on me. Maybe there's like 4 of the people and myself on the van. And since it's a city tour, I knew it was going to be, somewhere in the romantic zone we're going to be doing this. So I figured the tour was going to start in the romantic zone, and we were just going to tour around before driving out towards the tequila factories. So that didn't happen. The driver comes on and he's like, oh, we're waiting for more people, so we're just going to drive you guys out to the bus terminal where they pick up all of the tour guests, and we're just going to drop you guys off there, and then we'll transfer over to your real bus, and then you continue the tour. And I thought it was odd. So like I said, guys, Zona Romantica, I think that's saying it right, is in town. This bus port was not in town. It was back out towards New Puerto Vallarta. So we drive out on the highway, and I'm looking around. I'm looking around myself. No. I forgot to tell you guys this. Let me backtrack. I get in the van. We're driving through the romantic zone, and then lo and behold, I see Steve, Roz, and Trish heading out towards their to their excursion, and I'm passing them by on this van, but I can't say anything because the windows are up. So that was serendipitous number one that day. Seeing them go on their tour, and I'm going on my tour. So that was the first serendipitous moment. That's good. So we're driving out on the highway now. It's a beautiful day, partly cloudy. We're heading out towards the avenue. And I've been up and down this avenue so many times, I know where we're going. So I'm looking at the streets. I'm looking at the buildings. I'm like, we're like 3 clicks away from the airport. That's how close this terminal was to New Puerto Vallarta. And then the tour van finally turns, and then we go to this brightly colored building. Looks fairly new. They park us at one of the stalls, and he tells us, we're early. And I'm like, okay, great, perfect. What else can happen? And I shouldn't have said that because more stuff happened. He was like, just get off the van, go use the baño if you need to, and come on back. And then we'll just wait here, and we'll assign you guys to your shuttles. So I don't know. I think that was a good 20 minutes before someone finally got us and said, come with us. Now, no one ever told us what we were doing, where we're going. And so we just followed the tour guide into the building, which was the terminal was attached to a mall. So we're walking inside, which felt great because it was hot that day. So we walk into this mall, and the guy is just walking us, telling us to come this way. We're all walking, and then I look up at the building that we're walking into, and this chocolate shop, or this cacao shop. And I'm like, oh, great. They're trying to sell us chocolate on a tequila tour. This is not what I signed up for. So if you guys have ever been to a chocolate tour, it's really all the same basic mechanics of how they take the raw cacao or cocoa, chop it all down, separate it all out, add the sugars and milks and all that other stuff. I mean, give or take, there's a few steps here and there that people do extra or not extra, but it's all the same. So they're showing us in the factory how they do it. That took about a half hour. And then we go out to the retail shop where they're really trying to sell the chocolate to us. And they go through the whole history of chocolate, which I already knew because I've taken so many different chocolate tours over my time as a flight attendant. So I'm just standing there listening, trying to pay attention, but I really had tequila on my mind. And so after the tour guide was done with his retail spiel, he tells everyone, this is the top opportunity for you guys to talk with my people. You can buy boxes of chocolate, et cetera, et cetera. So with that being said, I just go to a remote table and I go sit down because I'm not interested in buying chocolate. I'm not a really big sweets person. So I just sit there for a long time, waiting for everyone to peruse around and eat and stuff their mouths with chocolate. So when the tour guide notices me, he's just like, you don't want any chocolate? I'm like, no. I said, I'm not a big sweets person. I looked at my shirt. I said, I just want tequila. So he was just like, I get it, amigo. So he's like, just go to the van. It's a gray color van sitting outside, waiting on you guys, waiting on you. So I'm like, okay, I'll just cut this short and go to the van. I walk out towards the van. I had a hard time deciphering which one was gray because they all looked the same, but it was just one right in front of me. I'm just like, I think this is the one. So I go there and I rip the sliding door open because it's a sliding van, and I'm like, I saw 3 ladies on the van, and I was like, "Whoa, hello!" And they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" And they see my shirt, like they saw tacos and tequila. They're like, about time. Let's get this party started. I'm like, heck yeah, where is the tequila? They're like, we're wondering the same thing. So I told them about my experience, and then they told them about their morning with the whole tequila thing, or lack thereof, tequila. And their names were Noelle and Dania. And they were both from Canada, we found out. And then there was another lady in the passenger seat up front where the AC was really, blowing hard in front of her. She was from Ontario. I forgot her name. I know she said it, but it was the 3 of us talking. So we were talking about, the Californians and Canadians are the always ones who are always traveling a lot, which is kind of true. But now I know why the Canadians travel a lot. So we're just vibing on that. And then I guess they were looking for a tour guide for us. They couldn't find one. So they finally found a guy who was doing the tour. And, we get the other people who are going on this tequila tour, city tour as well. And now for some reason we're late. So once we were early, now we're late. So you guys see where I was going with this morning. I was just like, Al, just trust the process. You're meant to be here for something. Just sit there and have fun with it. So that's what I sat back and did. I just stopped worrying about getting tequila, and I just went with the moment. So that's when I really just introduced myself to Noelle and Tanya, and they live up in the Alberta province up there in Canada. If you guys haven't been there before, Calgary would be the major city, and then the rest of the province is a whole bunch of little small towns. And Banff National Park, that was another place that's there in the um, Alberta province in Canada. So we're talking about that, and I told Tanya I've always wanted to go, and she was just like, I think it's a cool spot to go. So she didn't really say much about it, but it was beautiful that she even wanted to talk about her province. So anyway, we finally get the driver, and then what happens? We're driving back into town. I know. I was just like, it doesn't make any sense to go all the way out to New Puerto Vallarta and then come right back into the romantic zone. So we hit the cobblestone streets. If you guys are ever out there in Puerto Vallarta as a tourist or a traveler, when you hit the cobblestone streets, that means you're in the romantic zone because it's the older part of the city. All the streets were built the same way in the old district. So that was always a rough ride. Just giving you guys a FYI about the romantic zone. It's a rough ride. So we're on the main avenue heading back in town. And along the in town, there's a promenade that borders the seashore, and they have a lot of art installations along the seashore. So if you guys look at the picture that I took with the boy on the seahorse, it's in that same green turquoise color. So they have seahorses, ladders, alien looking type things. They have other sea creatures that are all a part of Puerto Vallarta's, seafaring ways, because it used to be an old fishing port back in the day. So it was just giving homage to their culture in Mexico. And then our tour guide is talking about the inception of Puerto Vallarta, where it got its name from. And, he was telling us how Puerto Vallarta, or Jalisco, is one of the most Mexican places in Mexico, because a lot of the Mexican traditions and cultures were born out of Puerto Vallarta. And I think he said Guadalajara as well as another city that a lot of Mexican traditions were born from. So I was proud of that, listening to that, because anyone who's Mexican or from Mexico should be proud to be a part of that history. It's a really long, beautiful history, and I was really appreciative of him sharing that knowledge with us. So I did take that away from the tour, was the history lesson in Mexico and how it all came about. Let's see what else. So we move on from that. So he started showing us the statues and telling us that it's living artwork. And, he was telling us how in our Western countries, or countries further north of Mexico, or in Europe, art installations, that are outside are not meant to touch. You just look at it, take a picture, and move on. And he was saying out here in Mexico, we have the exact opposite way of looking at art. He was like, art is meant to be touched, art is meant to be climbed on, art is meant to be enjoyed by all. So he was like, that's why you see a lot of the blue paint rubbed off, because people are all over these statues. So that's another part of Mexican culture that I really liked, is, they believe if something is there, it should be used. It should be there for everyone to enjoy. It shouldn't be off limits. So I did appreciate that, learning that part of the culture as well out there. And then, since we're late, he's just telling us that we're late, and he's just kind of showing us from this tour bus these statues. So me, Noelle, and Tanya looking at each other like, the heck is going on around here? Shouldn't we be out here looking at these statues? So, and then he goes through our day, which was the chocolate factory. And I think we're going to another chocolate factory in town before driving out south towards the beaches to go to a coffee factory before going up into the mountains to this tequila spot, having lunch, and then coming back. So I'm doing the calculations. I'm like, we're not going to get back till at least 3 or 4 o'clock. And I looked at Noelle and kind of mouthed it. She was like, I know. And so That wasn't cool with us. We thought we were going to be going from um, distillery to distillery to distillery to distillery, but the tour was just all this other stuff, and then just one stop on tequila. So the three of us were not vibing on that at all. To tell you the truth. So, our tour guide says, if you guys have been to Romantic Zone, it's congested, and there wasn't a lot of parking. Even on a good day, there's hardly any parking, especially for a bus. So he was like, "I'm going to drop you guys off here, and then I'll come back get you guys, and we're going to start the city tour." So I was just like, "Okay, I'll just trust the process. Just be present, like you've been telling yourself all these months, and just go for it." So that's what I do. I get out the van, and then that's when I go over to. I knew where I was going. I knew where I was. So I walk forward, and then I walk to the left, and the cobblestone street dead ends at the boardwalk or the promenade. And I just walked out to the water. I had no clue the rest of our party was following me. I was just walking out towards the shore to get the sea air, like Nano was in the Night of the Iguana. I just wanted to smell the sea air, experience it on my skin as the ocean crashes against the seawall out there. So I'm on the promenade, and of course Noel and Tanya right behind me. So they climb at one of the statues, because statues that we stopped at had a ladder with these little like alien creatures on them. So Tanya climbed almost up to the top. They took a picture. And so I'm out towards the ocean, just at the bay looking at it. And so that's when the three of us start talking, getting to know each other. And then that's when they asked me, "How do you feel about this tour?" I'm like, "Well, I've been to Puerto Vallarta so many times. I've done this tour on my own." And I told them what I took away from it. And I said, "Other than that, I really don't want to continue this tour." And then that's when Noelle was just like, "Yeah, let's not." She's like, I just wanted someone else to say it, but she's like, "I'm not feeling this." And neither was Tanya. She's like, "One stop of tequila. That's not it." So I'm like, "Well, what do we do?" And Tanya looked over, and she saw, because there's a beach bar. So let's just go there and get ourselves our own tequila. Why not? And maybe we could just talk it over, and then we'll see if we want to continue this tour or not, or do we want to just leave the tour and do something else. So I said, I'm down. I'm cool with that. We go in, I get my drink, tequila or Don Julio and soda water. And they order, I think it was a margaritas, and I think someone else had ordered another cocktail. So as we're sitting down talking about what we're gonna do, this is where the serendipity starts. My back was turned towards the ocean, or towards the shore, and I'm talking with Noel and Tanya, giving my full attention. From the street level, or from the street, I hear "Al," and it's Steve. And I'm like, he's like, "What the heck are you doing here? I thought you guys were on your tour." I'm like, "Well, this is the tour." This is what's happening. We are here at a random bar having tequila and other cocktails. He was just like, "I thought you guys," I'm like, so I told him the whole story. And so Roz and Trish come in, and they're all asking us the same thing: what's going on with the tour, blah blah blah. So we do our whole thing. And so we all start comparing notes and changing names and doing hugs. It was an interesting just moment that people just came together and just hugged it out. So many smiles and laughs. They ordered some cocktails because they were all sweaty too. So they showed Tanya and Noel where to go if they wanted to climb the stairs on their visit here in Puerto Vallarta. So after all that went down, Noel asked Steve. They call him Daddy Steve, and they were like, "Him, we don't want to continue the tour." And she looked at me too. She's like, "We're not continuing the tour." And I shook my head like, "Yeah, we're not doing this." And she was just like, "Can we just hang with you guys for the morning?" And that's when Steve looked at me, and I looked at him, and I'm like, "Well, why not?" And so because we had like name tags on, so she ripped our name tags off. She's like, "We're done. We're gonna hang out with you guys." So we get to go cups, and then we start heading out. And then one of our photographers, she asked us where we're going, and that's when Noelle was just like, I'm not feeling well. The cobblestone streets is really not, it's making me nauseated. So thanks to her, we got out of it. So as we're walking on the promenade south towards uh, town, we see our tour guide. Finally, he found a spot to. He was like, "Did I do something wrong? Did I do something wrong?" And that's when Tanya was just like, "No, nothing. We just wanted more tequila." And then that's when Noelle was just like, "Well, plus I don't feel well, et cetera, et cetera." So we apologized to him. I think Tanya tipped him some pesos for his time, and then we just went off into the day. So we're taking the ladies on the Canadians, as we call them. We're taking the Canadians on their own tour, of our own tour, what we knew about Puerto Vallarta, and we're just strolling along, sauntering along, not really walking that fast. And the girls wanted tacos. That's what they wanted, and they hadn't had real tacos since they had been in Puerto Vallarta, and we're like, oh, you got to have these street tacos. So we went to our favorite street taco spot that we went to on Friday, and we order all of our tacos, and there is a vegan place like right behind the taco stand that I've always wanted to go to, but it was never open. And this time it was actually open. It's called Elixir Vegan Spot. So all you vegans out there, if you guys are in Puerto Vallarta, it's not all, animal products out there. There is a vegan spot, and it's called Elixir. I think they're also on Facebook and Instagram. So if you guys if you're a vegan or just want some really good, clean vegan food or vegetarian food, go to Elixir. They're right in the romantic zone, close to Los Muertos Pier. So I walk in there, and the reason why I walked in there is because I finally saw the sign for kombucha, and I was really I needed my kombucha. It's been a couple of days. My stomach was a little weird. So I'm like, I need to have some kombucha. So I saw the sign. I walk in. I meet I think he was the owner, Omar. And I saw the sign out front. You guys sell kombucha here? He's like, yeah, brother, right over here. And I kid you not, guys, this is jars and jars of just homemade kombucha just sitting there. It was a kombucha factory. And I'm like, oh, I'm in. This is some, legit stuff. So the vibe was it's like just holistic and clean, and it was no negative energy around there. It was just all positivity as soon as I walked in their space. So I trusted the kombucha was going to be good. So I ordered the cucumber flavor, which I found really refreshing. I was a little surprised. So I had that, which energized me. So I had my tacos. As I projected, my stomach was right on point. It felt great. And Roz, she was just like, "What is that in that glass bottle? Is that a cerveza?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "It's kombucha." She's like, "Where?" And I was just like, "It's right in there." She's like, "You got to take me." So we go in there, and so she gets kombucha as well. And I think she got another flavor. I think she got the cucumber as well. And then no, she got the ginger. And then I went back and got the ginger as well. That's what happened because we wanted to get kombucha for the next day too. So we were vibing on that, and that's when Tanya comes over, and she was like, "I'm vegan. I wish I had seen this sign earlier." I was like, "I didn't know that you were vegan." So anyway, she goes in there, and she looks around. She's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this trip." So I think she probably went back there, but I'm not really sure. But we do our thing, and then as we're sitting there having our tacos and kombuchas, Charles and Monica come up, and then the two Canadians are just like, "How many people do you know?" I'm like, "This is just how it is on this trip. People are just coming out the woodworks, just talking and saying hello." So, we're just all vibing, introduce themselves, and we tell them about our non-tequila tour experience. But as Tanya would say is it was the best non-tequila tour ever because we authentically met up serendipitously through this tour. And like I said, beginning of this episode, when I opened myself to meeting people again, to being curious about everyone and everything, all these little serendipitous moments started, or little serendipitous things are happening into my life again. It's breathing new life back into my existence here on this planet. So that's why I always leave you guys with staying curious about everyone and everything, because I met at least six new people just randomly out and about as I'm moving through this dreamscape. And that's what I mean by being a cosmic traveler. You're cosmically moving through life, consciously moving through your life, and you're living spiritually in all directions. And that's what I was doing down there in Puerto Vallarta, was living spiritually. Yeah, did the path go left, right, up and down? Yeah. But did it land on something beautiful and great? Yeah. Tanya, opened up her house to me because she was just like, anytime you're up in Calgary, I'll come get you. And then we'll spend some time at Banff National Park, because I've always wanted to hike Banff. And, it was just all these just serendipitous things that went down that day. Meeting them on this random tour, and just meeting beautiful light beings. They didn't see much of this. They didn't judge me on this, what the avatar looks like. It was just pure light, that was in within me and within them. And then that's when I found out that Tanya she's a massage therapist, and she used to be, I believe, a firefighter a long time ago. So we were talking about our spiritual journeys. That's what I mean by, me and her is really bonded on a lot of different things while we were out there that morning. So it was getting around 1 o'clock. So we bid the girls goodbye, and, they said they're going to walk in town and look at other stuff. And then we go back to the pool, and we just have a pool day upstairs, which is great. I was started to read Becoming Superhuman by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And the book finally picked up, so I was really into it. So we were out there for a very long time, until about 5, maybe 5:30. And then that's when we got hungry and went out for, oh, yeah, another alert for a restaurant, Tre Beati. It's an Italian restaurant in Puerto Vallarta. When you step into the space, there's this huge tree in the middle that's actually really real. But you would think you're in Italy somewhere. That's how the decor is, and it's very wonderful. Buddy of mine, David, works there, so he took care of us every time I go to Tre Piatti's out there. So you guys looking for a really good, authentic pasta spot? Tre Piatti's is it. Go out there, you have some really good Italian food. So we had a Sunday dinner there, which was wonderful. Roz just loved it. She's like, it was clean. It was sodium free, and she was just like, I just love the taste of everything, which is true. And the thing about Tre Piatti's menu is it changes. It changes. I think David said change every 3 months. They change it out. So no, every 3 weeks it changes. My bad. It was every 3 weeks they change out the menu. So if you guys go to Tre Piatti's, one time, everything in the menu you thought was going to be there is not going to be there again. So the chef changes things out regularly. And then we had a really good, I think it was a Pinot. I think it was Pinot Noir. That was really great. That was tasty. So anyway, after that, we go up to Twisted Palm, and we go back there on a Monday because they were having Martini Madness, which was really fun. I love martinis. You guys don't know that about me, but I love martinis. So anyway, we go up there, and then what else do we do? Met the bartender again. I start with it's going to sound weird, Stand Up My Crack Martini, which was okay. It was very fruity, which is not really what I prefer to have. So that's when I went back to my old classic of a Cosmopolitan. Yes, I am a Sex and the City person. I love Sex and the City. I watched the whole entire series so many times, and the movies. So, and the new TV show, just like that, HBO. I'm watching that too right now too when it comes back. So went back to my old Cosmos, and as we're sipping our martinis, I look up at the screen, and on Monday they were playing Goldfinger, which is a classic from the James Bond films. So I'm like, oh my God, it's Goldfinger. And then this bald, taller guy was off to the right of the bar where we're sitting. And he was just like, "Well, what do you know about Goldfinger?" I'm like, "Well, I think it's the top two. What's it called? James Bond films that I like." And he was just like, most James Bond people say that. So me and him are having this synchronized conversation about James Bond films, and then we're ranking films. We're talking about who we think's the best Bond. So we're all having this, really fun conversation about all the Bonds. And so after we're talking about all this stuff, I finally asked him, I'm like, "Well, who are you? Why do you keep hanging around this bar?" And he was just like, "Well, I own this bar." I'm like, "No, you don't." He was like, "Yeah, I do." So I'm like, asked one of the bartenders, I'm like, "Who owns this bar?" He's like, "Him." So I said, "Well, what is your name?" He was like, "My name is Al." And I'm like, what is the likelihood of that? And so as soon as he said that, that's when Tanya was just like, serendipity. And I was just like, it is, because, what's the likelihood of me meeting another Al all the way out there in Puerto Vallarta? So I met the bar owner, didn't even know he was a bar owner. Again, like I said, guys, this is how, living spiritually is. You just talk to people without knowing who they are, what they're doing. You're just talking. So, we finally shake hands, and then he starts moving around the bar. Lo and behold, he's Canadian as well. And so all the girls who were with us were all Canadians, Tanya, Noel, and they brought some other two friends with them. So they're all sharing all this information about Canada, talking about Canada and politics of Canada and Justin and all that stuff. And so one of them actually knows his sister. That's what I mean by Puerto Vallarta. It's just one of those towns where you're going to run into people, or it's going to be at 6 degrees of separation down there. There's so many people traveling there. Uh, Anyone could go down there by themselves and walk away with friends. So this is how inclusive that town can be with travelers. So again, serendipity ruled the day yet again. So they exchanged numbers and all that stuff. And then after the Martini Madness was over with, because I think they shut down around 11, that's when Al was just like, "Hey, you guys got to go." So we went back to one of the other bars, not too far from our Airbnb, and we meet up with another guy. Well, his name, he went by Al, but his name was Alan. And so I was just, and that's when Tanya looked at me again. She's like, "Serendipity." And I'm like, "This is the word of the night. It's serendipity." So I was just like, look again, I looked at her, I'm like, what is the fucking freaking likelihood that I meet two Als or Allens uh, in Puerto Vallarta? My name is Al. She's like, "It's a sign." So, we took it as a serendipitous sign. So we take our drinks, we head out towards the patio or the balcony where everyone's at, or we're at. And we just have a lovely time just talking as people, as humans in the night air, enjoying the night air again. And the outdoor space was just had, tons of palm trees and different other smaller plants. And then on the wall by the club, it's all a huge giant iguana. And then I look up at it and I'm like, the Night of the Iguana. This is it. You freed yourself from the constructs and constraints of your life as Al. And so that's why, again, I took it as another serendipitous moment to just ferment what the shift in my life has been in is, when you look at life differently, you start seeing cues, repeat in numbers, as a repeat in images, a repeat in names. If you guys pay attention or wake up to it, there's so many different repetitions in nature, in this physical world. If you're not paying attention, you never notice it. But when you wake up and become a conscious being again, you start to see all the serendipities. You start to see all the synchronicities in life. And like I said, that whole day was just full of synchronicities and serendipities. And again, I lost track of time, and I didn't want the night to end, but we were all getting tired. And so I'll tell you guys one more synchronicity and then I'll wrap things up. So we're heading out from the bar, and literally it's like I think it's about 2-ish in the morning. No one, and I mean nobody, was out there in the streets. And Steve was just like, "How are we gonna get the girls home?" And so, we walked around maybe the block for a little bit. Nobody was out, not one cab. And then I just stood there on the side of the street corner, and I just closed my eyes. I took a few deep breaths, like, Hannah Jelks did, or Miss Jelks did in the Night of the Iguana. I calmed myself, and then I manifested. I said, please, universe, find us a cab. And I said that a couple of times in my head. And then as Steve's fumbling around his phone for cabs, lo and behold, a cab, these lights come on, and a cab just comes down the street. And he's just like, are you looking for a cab? And I look at Tanya, I'm like, oh my God. She's like, what just happened? I'm like, I manifested this. And she was just like, oh my gosh. She's just like, this is wild. I'm like, yes, it is wild. So we got a cab. I told the cab driver, take care of this precious cargo in here. So he got them back to their hotels out there in New Puerto Vallarta. So guys, with all that being said, I had a really serendipitous day. So thanks to the tequila, non-tequila tour, I met some new friends on that tour. And I think Tanya's probably going to be a lifelong friend. There's a spiritual journey within her that I would love to dive into. So maybe I'll ask her to be on the show. But with all that being said, wrapping up my whole entire Puerto Vallarta experience, I went down there partially liberated, and I feel like walking out of Puerto Vallarta, I'm fully liberated. I finally cut the chains, cut the rope from my neck, and I'm that iguana that has scampered back off into the jungle to be myself again. So that's what I took away from my Puerto Vallarta experience out there. So with all that being said, I encourage all of you guys to finally free yourselves, have your night of the iguana, and shed yourself from all of those constructs that are keeping you guys chained and comfortable in your lives, and just embracing that unknown. That whole entire trip, I had loose plans, but nothing was ever set in stone. I always just ventured off into the unknown and trusted the universe, trusted my guides to guide me to people and guide me to situations that were on my vibrational level. And I was really proud of myself that I didn't overdrink. I was conscious during my whole entire time. I remembered all of it because I'm talking to all of you guys about it. I didn't black out. I wasn't sloppy. Everything that I talked to you guys about, I experienced and remembered it. I journaled most of it, but I barely looked at my journal. Everything was just solidified in my memory. And like I talked about in my breath work workshop with my Thursday Night Live, I finally have the mental capacity free in my mind to put new memories in these storage containers that are in my mind. So that's what I mean by being curious about everyone and everything again, guys, and enjoying what you love. And I know what I love to do is dance. I love dancing. And I finally got back to doing that again on this trip. And we talked about another previous trip that I talked to you guys about. So I encourage you guys to go forward and just get back to things you love to do. Liking to do things, that's great too, but just finding something you truly love to do and finding that joy and bliss again in those things. I think that'll take you guys far as cosmic travelers, and being the creator in your lives. That's another thing I encourage you guys to start doing. Creating, being conscious, experiencing it, remembering it, and just, like I said, guys, enjoying this dreamscape. So thanks for listening to me, everyone. That was my cosmic journey and my time in Puerto Vallarta and my liberation as my Night of the Iguana, where I finally freed myself from Al. So that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. And thank you for listening, everyone. I know we're going close to 2 hours. I can't believe I talked this much. But I think it's wonderful. It was like I said, it was like 6 days of stuff I had to get out of my mind. So that's my experience down there, guys. Thank you again for tuning in to my podcast. You guys can still find me on YouTube. I'm definitely going to, I'm going to stop procrastinating about it. Move everything to Spotify. Hopefully, that'll be easier for all of you guys to listen to what I have to say. And you can still find me on Instagram under my full name, which is Al. And you can find posts there. I got to do more shorts to promote all this stuff. So let's see, what else can I say? Thank you for tuning in, everyone. This is my last audio episode. The next one is going to be me again, so you guys get to see me again. So if you're looking forward to that, tune in. We're talking a lot of stuff. I don't know. I think I'm either going to cover the art of contemplation for the next episode, or we're going to talk about nutrition. I just finished that book when like I said, when I was down there at the beach. So maybe one of those two we're going to pop up. We'll see how it feels. Sometimes the universe guides me. I mean, Al wants to talk about certain things, and then the universe will guide me to something else. And this episode was that something else. I wasn't going to talk about my experience down there in Puerto Vallarta, but I felt like someone needed to hear this. So all that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in. I really do appreciate those listeners out there. And let's keep being curious about everyone and everything, and go do something fun with your life. Go do something fun with your life and live spiritually. I will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Cosmic Mission.